ladies, it's your mate Simon Outdoors here. We're here to talk to you today about some British surplus of all things 58 pattern, but before we talk about that, like and subscribe, all that good stuff, help the old channel grow. We always really appreciate all your comments, serious, non-serious, having me on about how I'm wearing my webbing too high, whatever it is, get on in there guys. We do read them, we do enjoy them, and we do reply. But enough about that. Let's just get straight into this. This is going to be a pretty light-hearted guide. There are some more serious ones out there, but for those who aren't aware of what 58 pattern is, we'll give you a brief little overview. But enough about that. Let's dive straight in. This old classic is British 58 pattern. It's a modular web system that they brought out in the late 1950s. It had been a good 20 years since the British Army had rolled out their last web system, which was the ku-fuffle pattern in time for World War II. So it was getting pretty outdated by this point. Now 58 pattern was made from cotton canvas, which was pretty standard for the time and was a pretty well-rounded system coming into the 60s. You've got a pair of kidney pouches on the back here, as well as ammo pouches on your sides, and you've got a canteen and cup pouch, as well as a poncho roll, and also this horrid backpack on my back here that some of the boys definitely loved at the time. Now why is the pack terrible, you might ask? Well, I say this as a Kiwi, knowing that in some of our previous videos, Brits are pretty passionate about their web sets, especially PLCE, and yeah, the backpack was, I think fair to say, not well liked at the time. It has these very interesting cross straps at the back that you could put your helmet if you weren't wearing it, but why would you not wear it? And if you wanted to access the actual pack, you had to undo those straps, even if you weren't packing the helmet in there, as well as doing the main straps to undo the bag. And also, you got these little clips that come in the side here. Very, very convenient, as you can see, for me trying to reach and find them, let alone do that in the dark. And also the ones that come all the way up through here. It wasn't something that you were going to access quickly, and to be honest, you'd be taking your webbing off or getting a good old battle buddy to fumble around in the dark with you. One other thing about the backpack, you got this really goofy loop system here, and this little part that goes through the handle, I believe, on the shovel and or pick. Yeah, not great. It's harkening back to 57 Pat days. Obviously, they hadn't gone the American route of getting entrenching tool pouches on their belts yet, but it is what it is. That's what that is anyways. And you also got these side pouches here. Pretty standard to get into that. Just unweave that, and there's nothing fancy going on the inside. Oh, and one last thing before I forget it. You got some loops on the top there, so you can add a bedroll or any other stuff like that. Right, just touching on the attachment system real briefly. Something with British web belts don't really seem to change all that much over time. In some degrees, they go for these little hole inserts here in this wire framing. They lock into place. They're every like 2 centimeters. So there's, technically it's all modular. There's lots of room for so-called adjustment there. That's on the ammo pouches on the canteen pouch. But for your kidney pouches, they've got this really bizarre tab system. Now this, from what I understand, is what everyone would complain about. As you can see, this previous owner has taped the ends of these up. So you got some D-rings here. Let me just zoom that in a little bit there. So you got these D-rings, and if we didn't have this tape here, you could pull this out, those tabs come off, and you could quickly remove your kidney pouches. Now they had different orders of battle, where they'd be like, right, beer and dope, I think that's the Americans term it, which is basically just fighting, just no sustainment. We're going into this fixed position, and no nonsense. We don't want any extra weight, so you could remove that quickly and then add it back in. But yeah, this is where the main complaint comes in, is that if you did not, you had to tape mod these. If you did not, these are pretty much always going to fly out, and your kidney pouches are going to come flying off. As you see here, this poncho roll, there's not much to say about that. He clips onto these D-rings, so he can be removed, well, maybe not in an absolute hurry, that's 4 points of contact, but yeah, he sits pretty happily there. It's not too uncomfortable, at least I found. One thing I forgot to go over on the ammo pouches on your left hand side, it's got this attachment here for your bayonet, so you can go, you know, poke things, I guess. And on this ammo pouch, you've got this little attachment here. I believe this is for the rifle grenade adapter. Something you might notice too is, are these slanted? Yes, they are. They are slightly slanted on purpose, I suppose, to help positioning and making draws a little bit easier, but more going into the prone and all that. But that's an intended feature. Now, just touching on brief comfort and functionality, this one is unmodified from straight off the rack. It's got all the original electrical taping on the tabs and whatnot from presumably the soldier who was last using this. I have barely even adjusted it for myself, could probably do with lowering that, but even as it is, I actually feel incredibly comfortable. There's nothing really slopping around like a lot of World War II stuff, or if you compare this to, say, East German, the NVA's web gear, where stuff's just sliding around. I mean, everyone's got their own personal preferences, but at least for indexing and knowing muscle memory where all your stuff is, let alone if you're crawling on your belly, nothing's kind of getting in the way or jabbing you in the ribs and really making life difficult. So again, I actually find this quite comfortable for the moment. Maybe not if I'm getting pissed on out there in the rain. This would probably start becoming a lot more miserable. But that's just from my uneducated opinion, which of course we're always keen to hear veterans' comments down the L section below. As for the pull tabs on these is, well, something of the age. Now you can see that these little guys, you can pull that, very easy to open under duress, all that sort of things. You can definitely grab a mag out in a hurry. Problem is with storing multiple mags in one big cell, you definitely want to re-secure that before you move again. And doing this back up under stress and on the move, it take a lot of training, a lot of practice to be able to do, to get better at that. But it's something that the American M56 pattern was pretty much doing exactly the same. It was pretty much par for the course at that time. One extra improvement that the British had applied to 58 pattern over the 37 is not having to blanco anything. For those of you who don't know, British World War II 57 pattern webbing was a pretty awful colour unless you were fighting in the desert. It's this big khaki, well, they do vary a lot, but khaki colour, and they would blanco their webbing to basically turn it into OD or all sorts of different shades. They really wanted to make sure that they weren't doing that this time around, so they came out of the factory OD. Also, a nice extra little touch is that they started painting, or I don't know how they quite cure anodizing, the buckles and all those parts with kind of a black or green surface. And they were told specifically to not modify their webbing. It's good as is. But yeah, the World War II era gear had brass buckles, which, well, brass, shiny, not great. But yeah, it was an attempt to standardize muting their military's gear, and they achieved that. Just to touch incredibly quickly on the history, well, the service history of 58 pattern. Well, it served in the Troubles, and yes, I'm wearing a balaclava, but not actually for that reason. But it is mainly known for the Falklands conflict, which ironically, yeah, it was getting a bit on in age by then. But yeah, that's really what it's identified with. But it kept going. Kept going right up through even into the Gulf War. Guys in the desert wearing desert DPM and this big heavy-ish cotton canvas stuff. At least they're typically not going to get rained on out there. But yeah, it continued going. But what was it most known for? Falklands, absolutely Falklands. And by the time of the Falklands War, this webset was getting well outdated, and well, these packs the guys didn't like them and were packing Bergens or even civilian packs into the conflict. By comparison, the US military had already started shifting, even as early as the 60s, to nylon webbing, not until at least officially the 70s, and the Brits were still heading into the Falklands with a cotton canvas webset, which in the near Arctic, getting wet is pretty miserable. It wasn't until the 1990s where they replaced it with PLCE, which was, I think, a pretty welcome update and replacement. But blimey, love them or hate them, we have complete 58 websets at the moment. They usually come in drips and drabs, little pieces over the years, so it's getting harder and harder to find these complete, but we have them. So grow out your biggest moustache, grab your dirty big old SLR, get some 58 pack, get some 68 DPM, get in there guys, it's an absolute vibe. Head on up to Army Outdoors, round it out today.